Hi, everybody, and welcome to our third session of the three-part series, Conversation About Change. Today, we'll be talking about technology and innovation. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, so welcome. Thank you so much for being here. In the chat, you can write where you're from, what you teach, how old your children are, anything you'd like to introduce yourself. The goal here is to create a digital community that empowers education. And so thinking about education as like a global experience and that kids are learning all over the world and there's so many different ways to learn that I really want to cultivate a healthy environment to learn from other people, learn from their experiences, both from teachers and from parents as we continue to have more inclusive courses. And learning to learn is a good mindset to have, even as a parent or as a teacher, as you start to dive into the new world of education and just what is changing for children. So let's just take a quick look here of the outline. For week one, we talked about traveling and global access, which remember, global access doesn't mean you need to travel the world out of a tiny backpack, even though that's what I prefer. I want to show teachers and parents that you can be a bridge without traveling the world, but actually just promoting that global access and not in a social media way or an excessive screen time way, but through stories and experiences. So in the first session, I talked a lot about experiences. Experiences shape us with who we meet, what we do, how we think. There's so much to it. So really just keep that in mind as we start going into other topics, but like experience is everything. So the interactive part is eased into with week two with teaching and modern education. So focusing on those micro lessons. So whether you're a teacher, whether you're a parent, modern education is not just in the classroom. It is in any conversation and anywhere you are. So really promoting that curiosity to be proactive, to explore the world around you. The modern education world is something to prioritize as a parent and as a teacher. I do these to support you, to just feel prepared as you enter these conversations, because we know that these conversations need to happen, but they'll happen at a different time and in a different place for all of us. And now tech is week three, so we'll be talking about conceptual versus practical approaches. We'll be talking about the creator versus consumer spectrum, just as we reframe our mindsets about what that means. And then I'll share more about a tech starter kit resource that I've created that's a free resource for parents and teachers. But I just wanted to summarize this outline to say that between traveling, teaching, and tech, we've got the three T's there with so much background knowledge to what that means. But that will really set you up to, like I've said, approach these conversations. This is a very vital time to feel empowered with your child. I think that given that children are getting more access with apps and talking with kids who have other access at such a different level, you really want to empower them with their communication skills to feel confident and feeling like they can think critically and collaborate with others, even though they have different experiences. And so let's get started. So, as a quick intro of me, I have taught and mentored in 10 different countries and traveled to over 40. I've talked about this a bit in the previous sessions, living out of a backpack, changing direction. I chose a more experiential learning video to give you an inside scoop of what Taiwan looks like. So I'm traveling, I'm promoting global thinking and connection, and we can do this in so many different ways. But firsthand experience is going to be something I promote to empower that curiosity aspect. What you thought about Taiwan before versus now might be different. You might have never thought about Taiwan, for example. So what did you learn? And so for children, though, to start imagining what it would be like to make different decisions for themselves, like would you want to go to Taiwan or would you not want to go to Taiwan? And why? That's a simple opinion that's basic curriculum in just a quick school example. Also want to point out that through all of my years of ESL teaching, which is English as a second language, it is a very, very, very interactive form of teaching. So learning a language requires interaction so you can practice, right? Well, even if you're just learning English with kids around you who are learning English, with a teacher who speaks English, the interaction is still really important and just progressing those skills to communicate for yourself. And so all of this ties together. I always jumble it up in an introduction because I feel like it's less about me and more about the platform that I stand for. And that's why I started Expat Education. So conversations about change. This will be a review, but then we'll shift into our topic for the day. We live in a world that's changing faster than ever. globally, culturally, and technologically. But change doesn't just happen to us. It's something we can help kids understand, adapt to, and lead through. That starts with conversation. When we start talking openly about change in travel, education, and technology, we build awareness, empathy, and resilience. These conversations don't need to be perfect, but they do need to happen. Because raising thoughtful, curious children in a changing world requires us to think differently too. Talking about change, adapting to change, realizing that we have different directions, we have different journeys, we have different pathways, we have different interests, but really just including children in all of the change. So I found that my students really loved being involved in the global scope because they could see themselves in the world around them. And if we don't talk about the change in the world around them, then they might feel a disconnect. Thinking about change that's coming, change that's happened, and just, really internalizing that change always happens. And so I think this is a good segue into starting with tech and future thinking. Although before we start, I just wanted to share that I'm preparing you for what these conversations could look like and just give you a variety of examples of, background information. But ultimately, I'm empowering teachers and parents to be a bridge for these conversations. And you'll do it authentically based on how you get to know your child and students. And this will be a very special way to grow your awareness of who they are. It's like really getting to know them at a deeper level with topics that are really up and coming. All right, so first slide of tech. We hear a lot about what technology is doing to our kids, but not enough about what it can do for them. Tech is not the enemy. Disconnection, fear, and overconsumption are. And I can feel some of you already start to push back on me, which I respect. And I'm just going to elaborate more on what I mean by that, because of course, there's always going to be a range on how we feel about things. So if I were to say, just as like an outside example, and then coming back to this topic, if I watched the news all the time and I didn't travel, I would be pretty scared to travel. There's a lot of dark news that comes into our living room every single night. I actually just said that to my mom the other night, that I just don't think that news is our full scope of reality. And I know I can trust my experiences based on people that I've met and how many planes I've been on and all of the things that I don't fear traveling, for example. Okay. So now coming back to tech, if you are surrounded by a healthy perspective of technology, and it really allows them to be super creative and just start thinking outside of the box, that's very different than someone just giving their child TikTok and not paying attention to what they're doing. Those are two very different examples. And that's why I say, even with traveling, there's always going to be a range on our experiences, whether you've gone away for a weekend or you've gone away for a year, experiences are going to range. Okay. So I say this because technology is not going away. So I don't want us to think about it like the enemy. But going to this picture, you can figure it out. This is a little reminder that there's always going to be a tech curve. So let's not fear it. Let's not disconnect from it. And let's not overconsume it, because we also know that reality is a beautiful thing and interacting with the world around us is essential to experience life. So just conceptually versus practically, we can think about it as understanding what it is and then using it. So the how, or the perspective and purpose versus the tools and the action. Okay, so conceptually is to think about it. We can conceptually understand that we use technology now and we will in the future. We can conceptually understand that innovation isn't just apps and AI, it's how we think, create, and adapt. And we can conceptually understand that what children see online is not neutral. It's full of bias and underlying reasons to buy something or to think something, right? There's always going to be a pressure to do or think a certain way. And so we can teach them to question and not just consume. Okay, so we can conceptually understand those things, right? And now practically, what does that look like? For example, how are you practically adapting to technology then? If you're avoiding it, you're not really practically adapting to it, right? So I'll give you an example in just a moment from something that actually my 10-year-olds taught me when I taught in fourth grade, the fourth grade virtual class in 2020. But before I show you that, I want you to think practically, how is there something that they can try and share their experience? because that's what our digital world is doing, right? Sharing experiences. And then practically, what would be your first topic of conversation with technology with your child? Consider their age, consider their interests, consider what you know, consider if you want it to be an experience that you both look something up together, that you both do something together, or that you create separate things and show each other. But there's a lot of different ways to go about this. Just as you consider this. So let me just give like one simple example and then I'll show you a video. But like Google Earth, just as like a very basic example, Google Earth was not a thing when I was in school. And Google Earth is just very common now. It's actually very, very, very basic. That's not really a big deal anymore, right? So if we look at Google Earth, if you just look at Google Earth with your child, and then you look at a globe or you look at a map, you can just talk about the difference. What's your understanding? How is it similar? How is it different? So now just thinking practically without going overboard, thinking about video editing. I'm just going to share a quick video to show you that you can just take clips of a video, not even special. It's all set up for you. There's so many templates now with technology that you can just drop it in. So just think about that's like a practical, creative way to share your experiences. So let's take a look. Okay, so that's just like a practical way to actually do something with the how. That was with iMovie, so that's just through my computer. But just to add on to this, of course, normalize boundaries with kids. So reflect on the emotional impact of tech use. So I would say that without technology, kids can feel really self-conscious and overwhelmed. I know that I did when I was a kid for different reasons, but know that the digital world is extensive. And so having these conversations with kids and making this conversation, about boundaries with them, just kind of relate to them, relate to that experience, because of course you're older and you have expansive scope of what this could be. Rotate different content types. So they could watch something, they could create something, and they could reflect. My students, like I said, did those videos before I even knew about them, and they would create class trailers of experiences and fun things, and then we would reflect like on how we have different styles and there's different approaches to it, and there's not a right or wrong way to create something. But we watch to get ideas, to get inspired, to learn from other people. We can create based on our own creativity, and then reflect on what that means, what we wanted to do, what we think we could do for the next time, et cetera, et cetera. And then just give space for questions. It's so important for children to have a safe space to process what they think and what they wonder about with this whole thing. Okay, so again, the problem isn't tech, it's the narrative. When we only see tech as a distraction or a danger, we miss its potential to empower. And I say this because through my experience, of course, I can relate, and maybe you can relate in a different way, but when I relate as somebody who is encountering different digital communities, different voices that I do not have access to around me, we just need to accept that there are voices that we can learn from very far away. And in the course that I've created, I've called them digital mentors, in a way that we can learn both from those around us and far away. But some of the common fears are screen addiction, social media, and isolation, which are completely, completely, completely valid. That's all true. And it also can bring to balance that there's better uses for it. So when I see that children are thriving with technology, it means that they can reframe what it means. So for social media, it's storytelling and global communication. You can choose to go down the rabbit hole of comparing yourself and looking up negative news and spiraling in that way. That's the isolation part, that's a lot of the addiction of just negativity in certain ways. But really thinking, businesses, every business that I can think of has social media to connect with people. And, that is storytelling in a way of who they are and what their mission is. If we think about games, it's not just to make the kid be quiet, hopefully. It's to think about problem solving and collaboration. There's a lot of different games that we can think about for apps that help with their memory, that help with critical thinking, and so many other things. But yeah, just not, I encourage those who are with us and who will watch it later on YouTube that I don't want us to think of technology as an all or nothing. These are the boundaries that we're setting and having conversations, which I'll get into soon, of just, feeling empowered to create boundaries, to think for yourself, to have that competence, to, yeah, feel freedom and independence with just what we encounter in our experiences. But just one more in the list of reframing our mindset about this is that AI tools are also creativity and career skills. So the picture I made here is through ChatGPT, and there's different ways to go about it. You could upload a picture, which this was not in that direction, although monkeys have been on my scooter and tried to steal my things. But I can also use my language to tell the ChatGPT what I want. Okay, and so you can guess from what's in the picture or maybe what I said, but then we get really used to, expressing language based on formatting. So if I said abstract or vibrant colors, it would look a lot different than this one, but you could still have the same concept. And then also AI, it's just these are skills that aren't going away. So I wouldn't say give a kid ChatGPT, but I would just have conversations about technology and creativity. You can point things out. You could talk about it together. I am encouraging talking about it. A lot of countries are like China and Vietnam and other countries are are giving children in school like access to play with it. They're not creating anything, no apps or coding or anything, but just kind of playing with it. And now I'm not saying that that's right or that's wrong or what you should do, but just consider there's a global scope. There's always going to be a different range of how prepared kids feel. Regardless, for expat education, we are just promoting that you converse about big topics in an authentic way. And I think that through this, it could be inspiring to find keywords or yeah, just kind of think about it for your own situation of when this comes up, where this comes up, and why this comes up. Okay, and now thinking about the creator consumer spectrum. So consumers scroll, absorb, and react, and creators make, reflect, share, and build meaning. Okay, so again, I don't want us to think it's all or nothing. It's not like we just consume or we just create. I know that it's helpful to learn from others, to see different things, to interact with different tools, and to kind of find your own style or just perspective on it. But then, of course, consuming information, it's important to talk with your child about being a sponge. We don't need to absorb everything. We need to filter information. And that's also empowering them to double check what they're reading, if it's true or if it's not. Just considering this as you move forward with these conversations, it's not about perfection, it's about balance and intention. Okay, so again, like I said before, these don't need to be perfect conversations, but they do need to happen. So, just as another perspective, people have been insanely successful, beautiful, rich, all of those things before the concept of showing it off on social media. Okay, kids felt insecure about themselves before the internet. Okay, kids are mean with their words without the internet. Okay, so just empowering communication skills in two different ways. One, to be able to relate and communicate with people around you, and then also feel empowered to know yourself through the digital world. And so considering that just, all of this happened before social media as well, but just give grace to these younger generations because they are truly normalizing like very advanced technology because it's already established. Like we're watching it happen, like as adults, we've seen the change, but kids are growing up like thinking this stuff is either easy or normal. So let me just give you this example that all of this was created. Well, the first one, this one here, I did on ChatGPT. So I can create a picture of myself. I can tell it what to say or what, what I want the picture to look like. But then this is like really advanced AI. You can see from these pictures I took from Sora Official, which works through OpenAI as well. Children are growing up with this concept of creativity that's beyond what we could even imagine when we were younger. So just considering tools that I've mentioned, I would say don't jump into something so advanced like that, but thinking about storytelling you could think about Canva, Adobe Express, or Book Creator. They can create their own books online. Like you can be creative with technology at a young age, and it's very interactive. So you could do it together. You could make your own books and share them together. You could look at Google Earth, like I said, VR headsets for creation. You could do stop motion, coding. They've made like fun coding games where you can make characters dance. I've done it through professional development while teaching. And then, yeah, there's kid-friendly editing apps, which again, if your child is not interested in coding, it's a whole other language. It's very understandable that children don't want to do it, but it's also understandable that they do have an interest in it. And I did have a conversation with somebody at a grocery store one time, and the guy said, yeah, I'm just like really lucky that I was kind of nerdy as a kid and really loved computers just all on my own. That didn't make me popular, didn't make me cool, didn't make me, interesting, but I really loved it. And it ended up being like one of the most successful careers I could have ever asked for. And so just understanding that children's interests range and that how they use technology will range, but also just, giving grace, like I've said, to learn. There's a huge learning curve here. And so again, I'm not pressuring you to do this or do that, but giving you just a platform to think about how you're going to approach conversations with children and what does that access really look like. Okay, so let's stay connected with Expat Education. There's so many different ways. I love posting on all different sites. So on all different social media. So Instagram is more about conversation connection, and I guess it's more my main platform. I started on that one. And then TikTok is travel videos and longer monologues. LinkedIn, if you're interested in AI, technology, education, business, and mindset, I like to share from professionals in their field. There's a lot of AI manuals getting written right now that different states are doing and sharing to help other schools, and yeah, just different programs in general. Always check out our website. That's where you can access the courses, which I'll share with you soon. And then there's a private Facebook group, YouTube, and Pinterest you can check out. You can screenshot this now and check it out later, or I will upload this to YouTube so you have access. So I've talked a lot about throughout the series global access and how do you start these micro lessons, which was week 2. So and now thinking about technology, it's like how are you going to start these conversations? I would love to support you in this. So the global conversation video module is what I created as a global teaching tool, but there's recorded options and there's live courses. But basically, it's setting you up with 30 videos and a routine, which includes having an open mind, enjoying the ride, the journey, and having conversation support, which you can check out our other videos online, just as more elaboration on this. But it's basically a structure to like set you up for conversation. And having an open mind, of course, just creates this high standard of just being able to listen to different opinions and to different people, different ideas. And then enjoying the ride means that we have different adventures, we have different small moments that we can enjoy and that we can share. So I share my travel adventures in like a 1-minute video, and then you give you a perspective of what that looks like for you. And then the journey is those digital mentors that I talked about, which is about like a 5-minute video of someone else's story. And I will share a quick sneak peek here in just a moment. And then the conversation support. I will always support you and your children or students starting the conversation. But then, of course, I, as a teacher and a traveler, give you the prompts from my experiences and just from my perspective of knowing the person. So this will really set you up just to normalize these conversations. And then again, like what I'm saying with the technology is that this might come up. So I'll connect the technology after we watch a little sneak peek of this video.
Hello, I'm Oliver from England. I live in Portsmouth, which is on the south coast of England. I am 21. I did an apprenticeship building aircraft as a structural fitter. And then 1 year ago, I got a job doing private jet maintenance in London, working for an American private jet company.
So it's a full video of him explaining his travel interests and what that means with working on airplanes and everything. But when I started becoming more interested in technology and AI and yeah, all the change that's coming, I had already met Oliver in Morocco. In the video, he talks about the apprenticeship and checking safety for airplanes. And when I reached out to him to ask about, how can you trust this transition of safety with airplanes and all of, the robotics that are coming and the AI and the evaluations and all of the things that are changing. And he said it's way too soon to like put that many lives in danger when like, yeah, people need to see it. They need to inspect it for their own eyes, from their own eyes. And it's a very physical job that you need to assess where you are and what to change and what to build and all of that. So I think this gives a great perspective with technology that like we can't just rely on everything with technology. So the GPS and the navigation and the controls of an airplane are already pretty much, I mean, they'll keep advancing, but we've normalized that, pilots can click certain buttons and it does certain things. But as far as the safety and the checks, this is really important that people are doing it themselves. And he is an advocate for that. So just as a bridge in this example is like you can use someone else's story to start like, when do we rely on technology and when do we not? It's like, I bet your child could say, oh, you use it for a GPS, but you don't use it to cook dinner. Oh, but you do use it to check for recipes, and so you can go back and forth of like, what does it look like? What does it not look like? What do we prefer? What do we not, and what is our experience versus someone else's experience, right? So for different jobs or for different interests, there's different ways to use technology. And so these global conversation videos can just start to be a catalyst for what these conversations look like for you. I also have a Meaningful Conversations with Children Blueprint Vocabulary Basics course, and this is for children or excuse me, for parents and teachers, kindergarten to fourth grade. So it includes the Global Conversation video module that I just shared with you. It also includes curriculum support from kindergarten to fourth grade, from reading, writing, speaking, listening, language, and math. And so it'll support you in having more specific conversations. And then it also includes the 5 chapters of these academic topics, which I dive into from my research, which is 21st century thinking and the skills, the child development, cultural competency, global citizenship, and integrative learning and skills. So this is like a crash course on just like what a modern conversation could be like as you expand your scope on education. So like I've said, there's an academic approach of like what this all means, what this looks like. I give you activities, I give you videos from my experiences, and yeah, just a lot of research in that. And then the practicality of having these videos to start the conversation. So more resources, I created a tech starter kit, which I very much encourage you to download. This is a free document. And so the outline includes welcome to the 21st century, so digital communities and just a different scope. Trending on social media. So I talk about influencers and just that social emotional learning curve for kids. And then just for your perspective as an adult, then I talk about the customer experience. So thinking about research, design, developers and customers. There's so much to the backstory of all of this. So I give you kind of this crash course again of what this looks like. And then, yeah, just thinking about into the future. So AI and innovation, and then just really engaging with reality. I know that technology can be super, yeah, crazy in a way that it creates worlds and realities that is not real. So there's also a free resource for kindergarten to fourth grade, which you can check out on our website. I know I'm going a bit over time today, so much to explain, but then also there's a postcards from the inside out. This is just a $10 document of poetry that I've written as I've traveled for the last 10 plus years. And this talks about the real world, the filtered world, and the inner world. And this will connect real world experience for students to relate and for teachers and parents to connect to curriculum. So there's also a coaching opportunity. There's one-on-ones for like a one-time session. There's 5 sessions or 10 session package. I talked about this a bit more in the other sessions, but feel free to email me. My email is paige@expat.education, or with all the social media platforms, reach out to me of what you're interested in. Speaking and training, I'm also super passionate about educating schools and, yeah, just administration and teachers about what modern education via global competency looks like. Like I've said, I think it's really important for someone with global experience from traveling, working, and studying to be training what global thinking really looks like. I think honestly, as I do a lot of research on AI, I think we're getting really lost in like making teaching easier for teachers through AI. Like, oh, you can use this app and it creates quizzes, and you can use AI and it gives you a worksheet that you explained in 30 seconds. And that's going to be a different conversation than understanding technology at a global capacity and really actually having global experiences with me through videos, through digital mentors, through stories, through my platform, to actually understand what AI can do in such different contexts. And that's really important to think about situational awareness and 21st century thinking skills. So please consider Expat Education for trainings with your school. I would love to connect with you. Any questions or remarks, please stay on to connect with me. I look forward to chatting with you. And then thank you so, so much for being here. Please reach out. Here is my contact information, and I look forward to connecting with you. Thank you all so much. Ciao for now.